Okay, we left off where Reuben, who is Jacob slash Israel, Israel's son, sleeps with his father's wife. Reuben is the firstborn of Jacob's sons and exerts his authority. Sometime during all of this, Jacob and Esau unite to bury Isaac. So Isaac dies, and the two sons, even though they'd had this fight, this terrible treachery among them, they make up. Then later on Jacob's deathbed, he tells Reuben. So when Jacob gets it becomes Israel, and later in his life on his deathbed, he never says anything to Reuben about this terrible thing he's done. Jacob never says anything. Israel never says anything. But on his deathbed, he tells Reuben that Reuben will not be preeminent because he's the firstborn. He will not be preeminent. And that he states that, and it's because he's defiled his father's bed, because he slept with his father's wife, his stepmother. And also, Jacob Israel states that Reuben will no longer excel. Genesis 49. Reuben, as the firstborn of the family, had claim to the inheritance rights of the firstborn, but he forfeited it through pride, the excellency of dignity, and through immorality. He defiled his father's bed. Due to the instability of Reuben, the usual firstborn birthright of the clan, which included the spiritual and social leadership roles, but also among the sons of Israel, it included the rights of blessing, of priesthood and ruling authority. Okay, so generally in the Israelite culture, the firstborn of the clan has a birthright. So if they're the firstborn is the birthright of the clan, which includes the spiritual and social leadership roles. So if they're the firstborn, they will have those roles. But also among the sons of Israel, so not just Hebrews, but of the sons of Jacob, Israel, it includes these: the rights of blessing, priesthood, and ruling authority. Now, these things were divided among the brothers. Reuben paid a hefty price for his instability and is told he will not excel. He and his whole tribe. Remember that Reuben is a whole tribe of people. Due to his instability, he is told that he will not excel, and that includes his tribe, those his descendants. And as far as we know, no prophet or judge and no king came from the tribe of Reuben. So exactly what Israel spoke, it was prophetic. He said that he wouldn't excel, neither he or his tribe, and no judge, no prophet, and no king came from that tribe. Now, further on his deathbed, and it's very important that you understand these blessings so you can understand how these blessings relate to you. So don't go too far away. Don't get it twisted. You need to know this. So further on his deathbed, you remember that Jacob slash Israel, his name was Jacob. God renamed him Israel. He has other sons. He has 12 whole sons. So he spoke to Reuben first, the firstborn. Then he says to Simon and Levi, I will scatter them in Israel. Simon and Levi are brothers, instruments of cruelty. Remember the massacre at Shechem? They killed all the men. Their sister got raped, and they just massacred. So his father was very disapproving of that, because God is the one to take vengeance for us. So both Simon and Levi were scattered. So these two tribes, Simon and Levi, were scattered, but one as a blessing and one as a curse. So in Joshua 13:33, it speaks that Simon and Levi would be scattered. These tribes are scattered. It says right there, he's scattered, and one will be scattered as a blessing, and one is a curse. Okay? Then in Joshua 19:11 and Genesis chapter 34, verses 8 through 12, this is what it states about these blessings. So to Judah, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Judah's the fourthborn from the tribe. Judah, you are he whom your brothers shall praise. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. Okay. Now, keep an eye on this clock. Blessings. I want to make sure I didn't miss a page. Okay. So we've got Shiloh is, of course, Jesus Christ. And when it says that the scepter shall not depart, it's because Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, the line of David. So he holds that scepter still to this day. Now, Judah, the man, Judah, who's going to end up, his descendants will be the tribe, he wasn't a completely exemplary character. He suggested a profit motive in getting rid of his brother Joseph in Genesis chapter 37, verse 26. He did not deal faithfully with his daughter-in-law Tamar in Genesis 38:26, and he had sex with her as a prostitute. That's how he didn't deal faithfully. But he showed good character when he interceded and offered himself as a substitute for Benjamin in Genesis 44, chapters 18 through 34. Overall, this blessing is an example of the richness of God's grace to the undeserving. So there's plenty of things that the man, Judah, did that could have definitely cursed the tribes going down, the descendants. But it would seem that that he did show good character when he interceded. He offered to stay when Joseph was in the land of Egypt and wanted the younger brother brought because he was the second in command. And the brothers weren't really sure about the situation, if Joseph had forgiven him. They didn't even recognize him. He asked for this man, Benjamin, to be brought back to prove their story of truth, that they were really just Israelites looking for grain. And of course, Judah stands up and says, he knows his father, Jacob, Israel's old, and we just wouldn't want to lose, the youngest son. And it's a 9-month trip, so he volunteers to stay. But really, it's an example of the blessing and the richness of God's grace to the undeserving. We're all undeserving, and still the Father blesses. So, the scriptures give a good account of what each tribe shall be. Verses 22 through 26 deal specifically with Joseph. Joseph, and this is what it says, Joseph, a fruitful bough. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a well. His branches run over the wall. The archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. By the God of your father who will help you, and by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lie beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors, up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who was separate from his brothers. So, Joseph is a fruitful bough. This is both a description of Joseph's life and a personal blessing concerning his descendants. Joseph's tribes were already blessed when his sons received an equal portion in Genesis 48. So Manasseh and Ephraim, his sons, already were going to receive a portion from Jacob Israel. This description of Joseph as a fruitful bough by a well speaks of his being a well-watered, clear, and speaks of him being well watered, clear and constant fellowship with God, and therefore blessed. He lived to God and was God's servant. It goes on to say that though Jacob was hated, he was still fruitful because of the hands of mighty God. Joseph received the material blessings, the double portion aspect of the inheritance of the firstborn, taken from Reuben. Okay, so it's given to Joseph and Judah. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors. Jacob could say this because for much of his life he was a scoundrel, and now at the end of his days he saw just how good God was to him. He was forgiven much and loved much. So the double portion aspect of the inheritance for the firstborn, it was taken from Reuben and given to Joseph. And then when it says the blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors, Jacob could say this because, remember, Jacob for much of his life, he was a scoundrel. He stole from his brother. He just all kind of, he a lot of little tricks with him. And he ran away. So he was forgiven much and loved much. And that's Luke 7:47. The mighty God of Jacob, in his words about Joseph, Jacob listed 5 great titles. Okay, so the mighty God of Jacob. In his words about Joseph, Jacob listed 5 great titles for God. These titles show that Jacob did come to an understanding of who God is. The mighty God of Jacob, the shepherd, the stone of Israel, the God of your father, the Almighty. Now Jacob knew who God is for himself. It is important to note that Joseph's sons were Manasseh and Ephraim, and they inherited these national promises of the birthright. So these are the Abrahamic promises, and you can go back and read in the scriptures, or if you'll watch the history of you'll see them covered. So the scepter, the royal scepter, went to Judah, the tribe of Judah, and was handed down. David was the tribe of Judah, as was Jesus. Only part of the children of Israel were referred to as Jews, and they were Judah. They were, okay, only part of the children of Israel were referred to as Jews, and those groups were Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the southern kingdom. The term Jew is a contraction of Judas and Judah, a Hebrew Israelite. And while all Jews are Israelites, not all Israelites are Jews. Only those from the southern kingdom. We're not referencing what you are told are Jews nowadays. You'll have to see the word to catch the spiritual influence here. The tribes of Levi, Judah, and Benjamin are called Jews. It's a term, it's a contraction of Judas and Judah. All the humans are the tribes of Israel. Okay? The birthright promises that Isaac gave Jacob and Jacob handed down did not pass to the Jews, Judah, but the royal scepter was passed to Judah. Salvation is of the Jews. These are the tribes, Levi, Judah, and Benjamin. They're called Jews. It's not necessarily the Jews that you see in that land occupying right now. You have to remember there are false Jews as well. So in John 4:22, so this is not referencing the fake Jews in Israel. These are people hidden all over the world. And for you to receive that seed of revelatory knowledge, you'll have to seek Christ and watch that video series. So this is, God's children are all over the planet, not in one location or only known by this one grouping. It's not necessarily, matter of fact, if you'll see Revelations, you'll hear about the Jews who say they are Jews but are not. So it's a completely different teaching. But anyways, all right. I believe we're going to pause right here. Yes, we're going to pause and we'll go on with the next part, okay?